You know that strange ache that hits when you realize you've done everything right? The affirmations, the visualizations, the late night journaling, and still, nothing truly shifts? It's like walking in circles inside a maze where the walls keep rearranging themselves every time you think you've found the exit. You keep saying, "This time will be different," but deep down, something feels eerily familiar. Same emotional loops, same people, same results wearing new disguises. I've been there, chasing the next technique like it might finally break the invisible glass ceiling of my life. I told myself I was manifesting, but what I was really doing was reinforcing the same identity that created the problem. I was broadcasting the same old signal, just with prettier words. You might call it frustration. The universe calls it feedback. The truth is, reality doesn't mirror what you say. It mirrors what you stabilize into being. The energy you keep returning to, the emotional posture you hold when no one's watching, that's the real code your field is running on. You can't paint over a cracked foundation and expect the house to stand. The shift doesn't happen by force, but by resonance. And here's where most people get caught. They try to change circumstances while staying energetically loyal to the same self who created them. That's the loop. That's the hidden gravity pulling everything back to how it's always been. But there's a way out, and it's not about doing more. It's about learning to observe differently. Because the moment your observation changes, the field reorganizes itself. Let's break the cycle, not with effort, but with awareness so stable it rewrites the pattern itself. Let's look under the hood of the cycle. Imagine for a moment that your reality is a mirror, not a distant cosmic metaphor, but a literal feedback system. Every thought, emotion, and internal stance sends a signal into this reflective field, and what returns is the energetic equivalent of what you're embodying. You smile in front of a mirror, it smiles back. You frown, it frowns. But here's where it gets tricky. Most of us stare into that mirror and demand that it change first. We say, "Once I see abundance, I'll relax. Once they love me back, I'll open my heart. Once I feel safe, I'll stop worrying." But the mirror can't lead. It can only follow. In quantum terms, this is the observer effect in action. The act of observation isn't passive, it's creative. The observer and the observed are intertwined. Your attention doesn't just notice reality, it instructs it. Every moment you observe from tension, lack, or proving energy, you stabilize that frequency into the field, and the mirror obeys. Here's the hidden mechanism. Your nervous system sets the tone of your observation. When your body is locked in alertness, your perception collapses around survival filters, scanning for danger, lack, and unmet needs. You can't tune to expansion while broadcasting vigilance. This is why so many people feel like their manifestations almost arrive, because part of them is signaling desire, while another part is signaling fear of losing it. Two conflicting frequencies cancel each other out, creating static in the mirror. To break the cycle, you have to shift from controlling the reflection to regulating the signal. It's not the mirror that needs changing, it's the observer's coherence. And when that coherence locks in, when your body and your focus are finally broadcasting the same truth, reality has no choice but to reorganize around it. But there's a deeper illusion we have to expose before this truly clicks, the one that makes people believe awareness alone is enough, while they're still caught in invisible loops of self-confirmation. That's where most people stay stuck, and it's exactly what we're about to crack open next. There's a myth that awareness alone changes everything, that if you know better, you'll automatically do better. But awareness without embodiment is like knowing the map and refusing to walk. You can see where you want to go, you can even describe the landscape, but you're still sitting in the same chair wondering why the scenery won't move. I learned this the hard way through a small but piercing moment. I remember waiting for a message, one I knew I shouldn't attach to. I told myself I was calm, surrendered, in flow. I even quoted to myself all the lines about trusting divine timing, but my body betrayed me. Checking my phone every 2 minutes, scanning for validation, heart tightening every time the screen stayed blank. My mind was spiritual, but my nervous system was desperate, and the field doesn't listen to words, it listens to frequency. That's when I realized my awareness was cosmetic. I'd painted over my fear with positive language, but underneath, my signal was still broadcasting lack. The mirror reflected that back as silence, not because the universe was cruel, but because it was honest. Here's the myth bust. You don't manifest from what you understand. You manifest from what your body has integrated as truth. The universe is fluent in vibration. not vocabulary. When you finally embody the awareness, when your body, emotions, and thoughts align into one coherent broadcast, you stop chasing outcomes. You start emitting them. That's why your calm friend, the one who doesn't seem to try, somehow keeps getting what they want. They're not forcing alignment. They are alignment. So the real question isn't, how can I know more? It's, where am I still performing calm instead of being calm? When you start noticing that subtle difference, the tension behind your affirmations, the unease behind your trust, you begin to hear the truth of your signal. And that awareness, grounded in the body, is what begins to change the field. But even then, something deeper decides how clearly that signal can travel. Something most people never realize is running the entire show. Because beneath your thoughts and even your emotions, there's a gatekeeper deciding what's safe to experience, and it determines how far your manifestation can go. That's the next layer of the cycle, the part that holds the key to finally stabilizing the change you've been chasing. Every manifestation process eventually runs into one invisible wall, your nervous system's threshold for safety. You can visualize, script, and affirm all you want, but if your body reads the desired reality as unsafe, it will quietly reject it. Safety isn't logical, it's biological. And until the body feels safe in a new frequency, it can't hold it. Think about it like this. You can't tune a radio to a higher frequency if your receiver is still trembling from static. You'll catch glimpses of the new signal, maybe even feel brief waves of clarity or synchronicity. But then the old static rushes back. The pattern resets. You call it self-sabotage, but it's really self-protection. Let's test it right now. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the version of you who already lives in that next level reality. The one who has the love, the flow, the freedom, the calm certainty. Don't analyze it. Just feel into that image. Now notice your body's immediate response. Does it expand or subtly tighten? Do you feel warmth or a flicker of unease in the chest, the stomach, the throat? That flicker is gold. It shows where your system still doesn't feel safe receiving what you say you want. Here's the paradox. Your desires aren't blocked. They're waiting for your nervous system's permission slip. And that permission comes through regulation, through learning to bring your body back to safety, even in the face of uncertainty. Try this short coherence practice. About 30 seconds. Bring your attention to your heart area. Breathe in for a slow count of 4, hold for 2, and exhale for 6. Do this a few times. As you breathe, imagine each exhale melting the tension between who you've been and who you're becoming. Then, think of something, anything, that evokes genuine gratitude or tenderness. It could be a person, a song, a quiet morning. Let that feeling expand in your chest. That's coherence beginning. When you do this regularly, even for a minute or two a day, your body starts to memorize safety in expansion. You begin to associate thriving with calm, not with chaos. That's when the mirror finally has permission to reflect stability back. Because coherence isn't a mental game. It's an embodied signal of trust. And once your body trusts the frequency, reality responds instantly. But there's still one more level. The shift from temporary states to something deeper. Something that defines whether your new reality sticks or dissolves. Here's the trap most people don't notice. They master the state, but never upgrade the identity. They meditate into peace. They visualize abundance. They feel momentary alignment. And then the old self quietly takes back the wheel. Because while the state visits, the identity lives there. You can enter calm for 10 minutes, but if deep down, you still see yourself as the one who has to fight for love, prove worth, or earn rest, the field will keep mirroring that self-image, not the temporary state you reached. The mirror always reflects who's standing in front of it, not who they wish they were. Think of your identity as the home frequency, the baseline that reality uses to calculate what's normal for you. You can visit other vibrations, but your life always returns to the one your body believes is home. That's why change often feels like a rubber band. You stretch forward, feel momentum, but snap back into old patterns once your nervous system declares, "We don't live there yet." The real art is to make the new frequency familiar. That's identity work. When you start seeing yourself not as the person trying to become abundant, but as someone for whom abundance is neutral, expected, ordinary, the field reconfigures instantly. You stop summoning outcomes and start stabilizing realities. And this doesn't mean faking confidence or pretending success. It means training your body to relax in the presence of what used to overwhelm it. That's when the identity shifts. when what once felt impossible starts to feel normal. Here's a small moment to illustrate. Imagine an athlete who once doubted their ability. The first time they win, it feels shocking, emotional. But after a few wins, it becomes natural. The nervous system rewires. Winning becomes their baseline. The same mechanism applies to any manifestation. It stops being a peak state and becomes your signature. So ask yourself, what emotion still feels like home to me? Because that's what you're unconsciously manifesting. And here's the key. Your identity doesn't just define who you think you are. It defines which timeline you can access. When you shift identity, you don't just change the story. You tune into a different frequency band of reality altogether. Imagine your life as a vast radio spectrum. Each possible version of you, every timeline, is already broadcasting on its own frequency. The confident one, the healed one, the abundant one, the one who finally stops overthinking and starts living. None of them are out there waiting to be earned. They're all happening simultaneously, but your identity is the tuner deciding which signal you can hear. When you identify as the one who's trying, you tune to the timeline of constant effort. When you see yourself as the one who always struggles but doesn't give up, you receive matching experiences of almost making it. The universe isn't testing you. It's matching the station you're on. The mirror isn't judging. It's just obedient. I saw this in real time once during a career crossroads. I'd been saying I wanted creative freedom, yet I kept calling myself stuck. I'd tell people, I just can't seem to get a break. That identity carried its own frequency, and life kept mirroring it. No breaks, no movement, just confirmation of what I kept calling true. Then one morning, I decided to run an experiment. I dropped the identity of trying to make it and started moving as if I already belonged in the reality I was chasing. I wrote differently. I walked differently. I said no to projects that didn't match that new frequency, not with arrogance, but with coherence. Within weeks, the timeline shifted. Opportunities appeared that matched the energy I'd finally stabilized. That's the paradox. You don't create new timelines. You tune into them by becoming the version of you who can hold their vibration without flinching. Every timeline already exists. Your nervous system, emotions, and self-concept decide which one becomes visible. This is why identity work isn't mindset fluff. It's literal timeline navigation. The moment your internal frequency changes, the external field reorganizes to match. It's not magic. It's physics of resonance. And if you've ever wondered why the change doesn't stick, it's because the body still carries muscle memory of the old self, the small contractions of doubt, guilt, or unworthiness that retune you to past frequencies. But there's a way to reprogram that muscle memory. Not through thinking harder, but through training your body to remember the new signal until it becomes effortless. And that's exactly where we go next, into a set of tools designed to make the new frequency automatic, embodied, and undeniable. Here's the secret most people miss. You don't become your new reality through insight. You rehearse it into your nervous system until it stops feeling new. The body learns through repetition, not revelation. Every small, consistent rehearsal is like tuning the instrument of your energy until it hums with the same note as your desired timeline. Think of a musician preparing for a concert. They don't just visualize the performance and they practice until the song plays through them. That's embodiment. Your new frequency has to become that natural. Not something you reach for, but something you rest in. So here's your toolkit to rehearse coherence. 1. Bridge statements. These are small, believable upgrades between your current and desired identity. If I'm wealthy feels false, find the bridge. I'm learning to feel safe with abundance. Or I'm discovering how it feels to be chosen. These statements train the nervous system to stretch safely without triggering resistance. 2. Somatic anchors. Pick one physical gesture that embodies your new frequency. Maybe a slow breath into the chest, a hand on the heart, or rolling the shoulders back before you speak. Pair that gesture with the emotion you're cultivating. Over time, the gesture itself becomes a key that unlocks the vibration instantly. 3. Embodiment drills. Each morning, take 60 seconds to move as your future self. Not pretend, inhabit. How does that version of you walk, breathe, look around? Bring that micro posture into your day. Let your body teach your mind that it already knows how to live there. 4. Signal calibration. Before any action, a message, a conversation, a decision, pause and ask, which frequency am I broadcasting right now? Then adjust. You're not forcing outcomes. You're tuning before transmitting. When you practice these tools daily, your system starts expecting coherence. The mirror stops reflecting confusion and begins to echo back clarity. That's when synchronicities multiply. Not because you're lucky, but because you've stopped splitting your signal. And as this rehearsal deepens, you'll notice something magical. Life starts to respond faster because it no longer needs to test your consistency. You've become the proof. Have you noticed the moment you stopped gripping, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. Still, even with these tools, there are traps that pull your signal back to static. 3 invisible habits that can quietly undo all your coherence work. And once you spot them, you'll never fall for them again. Let's face it, even when you understand the mechanics, the pull of the old frequency can be strong. You start tuning clearly, you feel aligned, and then urgency sneaks in like static on the line. What if it doesn't happen? What if I lose momentum? That rush to make something happen faster than it's unfolding is actually the first sign your signal is slipping back into lack. Urgency is the energy of not yet. It tells the mirror, I'm not there. So the mirror faithfully reflects not there. The antidote isn't apathy. It's trust in timing. When you feel the urge to rush, take one conscious breath, drop your shoulders, and say silently, it's already tuning in. This interrupts the pattern that collapses coherence into fear. Then comes split signals, wanting something while secretly doubting it's allowed. You visualize abundance but still feel guilty about money. You affirm love but brace for rejection. Each emotion broadcasts a different station, and the field receives both, resulting in mixed reflections. The fix? Radical honesty. Admit the part of you that still doubts. Don't fight it. Integrate it. When you bring contradiction into awareness without judgment, your field unifies. The split heals through inclusion, not denial. Finally, there's over-control. The need to micromanage outcomes, obsess over signs, decode every delay. That's not manifestation. It's energetic surveillance. Control broadcasts insecurity, and the mirror keeps sending new reasons to keep watching. The remedy is surrender, not in passivity but in precision. You hold the frequency and let the field handle the choreography. Think of it as co-creation, not command. Here's a small practice to dissolve all 3 traps. Place one hand on your heart, one on your belly, and breathe until both hands move in sync. As you exhale, say inwardly, I release the rush. I unify my signal. I trust my field. You'll feel your system soften. That's coherence resetting. When these obstacles lose their grip, your energy becomes clean. Not because you're controlling every thought, but because your entire being agrees on one truth. And that's when the extraordinary starts blending into the ordinary. When your everyday actions start carrying the signature of the future you've tuned into. Because the real mastery isn't in rare, high-vibration moments. It's in learning to embody that frequency in the middle of dishes, deadlines, and conversations that test your old identity. The real transformation doesn't happen during meditation or visualization. It happens in the in-between moments. When the phone doesn't ring, when someone challenges you, when you walk through your day and life invites you to prove what you now believe. That's where the embodiment is tested, not in ritual, but in reality. Integration is when the frequency becomes lifestyle. You no longer do manifestation. You are it. Every small choice becomes a transmission. Every reaction becomes a mirror check. The ordinary moments, eating breakfast, sending an email, walking down a hallway, all become portals for coherence practice. Try this. When you're walking, match your breath to your steps. Let your awareness settle into your body, not your thoughts. Feel the ground receiving you, as if each step is a conversation with the universe. I am here. I am grounded. I belong. That's not poetic. It's quantum calibration. The field reads that embodied certainty as safety, and life begins to harmonize around it. Or when you're eating, pause before the first bite. Feel gratitude, not as a performance, but as a soft exhale that says, this moment is enough. That vibration of sufficiency is the same signal abundance recognizes. Even in conversation, notice your tone. Are you speaking from the frequency of the new identity, or defending the old? When coherence becomes your communication style, you stop leaking energy into old narratives. And here's the hidden beauty. The more consistent you become in these ordinary settings, the less effort manifestation requires. The mirror starts catching up to you faster because there's no delay between who you are and what you signal. Integration isn't glamorous, but it's sacred. It's what turns practice into presence. It's the moment you stop holding the frequency and start living it. And then something remarkable happens. Your field expands beyond personal manifestation. You start influencing rooms, relationships, creative flow, not through words, but through resonance. People feel you before they understand you. Your presence becomes the evidence. But there's a point beyond even this, where coherence stops being about manifestation altogether and becomes something far larger, a way of participating in the intelligence of reality itself. Once coherence stabilizes, your influence starts extending beyond personal goals. You notice it first in relationships. People soften around you without knowing why. Arguments resolve faster. Communication flows. That's not coincidence. It's resonance. When your energy is regulated and congruent, others' nervous systems pick up on that safety and mirror it back. You stop reacting and start regulating the field itself. Then it seeps into creativity. The same mind that once pushed and overthought now receives ideas like signals instead of generating them through strain. Flow states appear naturally because you're not fragmenting energy between wanting and worrying. You've become a clear channel, a radio dialed to inspiration instead of effort. And then, the domain that surprises most people, health. Your cells are listening to your frequency as closely as the universe is. When you dwell in coherence, relaxed alertness instead of chronic tension, the body shifts from protection mode into regeneration. Digestion improves, sleep deepens, breath slows. Healing stops being a task and starts being a byproduct of alignment. Let's ground this in a moment. Picture this, a job interview. The old you might have rehearsed answers, fought anxiety, tried to project confidence. The embodied you does something else entirely. You regulate your breath, connect with your heart, and remember the simple truth. You're not there to perform. You're there to match frequencies with opportunity. Suddenly, your presence feels magnetic. You don't chase approval. You broadcast self-trust, and the room rearranges itself accordingly. This is expansion, when your coherence becomes contagious. You stop manifesting outcomes for yourself and start uplifting the field for others. You become a tuning fork that silently invites alignment wherever you go. But there's one more leap. The moment you realize manifestation was never just about creating things. It was about remembering that you and the field are the same consciousness, playing both sides of the mirror. That's the spiritual layer. The point where you're not just influencing reality, you're dancing with it. And to understand that shift, we have to talk about the paradox at the center of all of this. The deeper you surrender, the more powerful your creation becomes. At some point, the chase dissolves, and what's left is presence. You stop using manifestation as a strategy and begin seeing it as a conversation between your consciousness and the larger intelligence that breathes everything into being. You realize it was never you versus life. It was always life, looking at itself through your eyes. This is where surrender reveals its paradox. The more you release control, the more precisely things align. Because control is rooted in separation, in the belief that the field is something outside of you that must be managed. But the moment you relax into unity, the mirror becomes responsive in ways logic can't explain. You're no longer bending reality. You're letting reality express through you. It's the difference between swimming upstream and remembering you are the current. That's the leap from manifestor to participant, from architect to instrument. You don't lose your power. You refine it. Intention becomes lighter, subtler. You say less, and reality listens more. Because the field recognizes coherence as command. And in that space, miracles stop being shocking. They feel obvious. The text arrives, the opportunity unfolds, the timing syncs, not as rewards, but as reflections of harmony. You've stopped grasping, and now you're guiding through resonance. This is what the mystics and physicists point to from opposite directions, the union of observer and observed, consciousness folding back on itself. The realization that creation was never happening out there. It's all happening here, through you, as you. But to live this truth, you must stay humble enough to keep listening. The moment you think you've mastered the field, ego sneaks back in, and coherence collapses into control again. True mastery is fluid, a rhythm of expansion and surrender, of acting and allowing. So when things seem delayed or outcomes twist unexpectedly, remember, the field might be upgrading your receiver before delivering the signal. The more you trust that unseen calibration, the faster reality responds, because you've proven you don't need proof. And that's the doorway to the final layer, where the mirror no longer just reflects you, but reflects life recognizing itself. The moment when manifestation turns into communion, Everything we've explored comes down to this. The mirror has never been against you. It has only ever shown the frequency you were brave enough to hold. When nothing changed, it wasn't failure, it was feedback. It was the universe saying, stabilize the new signal a little longer, believe a little deeper, become the version you keep glimpsing. Breaking the cycle isn't about escaping what was. It's about ceasing to broadcast it. The moment you stop arguing with the reflection and start adjusting the signal, the field reorganizes effortlessly. Because the mirror doesn't need convincing, it needs coherence. Picture this final image. You stand before a mirror, but this time, instead of demanding that it smile first, you soften your shoulders and smile anyway. You exhale. The reflection catches up instantly. That's how creation works. Not by pleading with the glass, but by remembering you were always the source of the image. You no longer chase the reflection, you become the cause. So when life feels like it's looping, don't push harder. Pause, regulate, retune. Ask yourself, what is the signal I'm broadcasting right now? Then choose again, not through effort, but through embodiment. This is how timelines shift quietly, how patterns dissolve without drama. It's how ordinary days start feeling infused with quiet magic, because your coherence turns reality into a living mirror that keeps saying, yes, this is who you truly are. You've broken the cycle, not by force, but by frequency. And maybe, right now, someone else is still caught in theirs, still staring at the glass, wondering why it won't change. Share this with them. Let them see that the mirror was never the prison. It was always the doorway.